No one noticed the girl sitting on the cold steps outside the private school. Her clothes were worn, her shoes too big, but her voice was calm and steady as she explained a math problem to a young child beside her. What no one knew was that the man watching from across the street was one of the most powerful billionaires in the city, and the child listening so closely was his daughter. The billionaire had come early to pick her up, distracted by a phone call about business deals and board meetings. But when he looked up, he saw something that made him pause. His daughter wasn't scrolling on a tablet or waiting for a driver. She was smiling, learning, fully engaged with a homeless girl who had nothing yet seemed to know so much. Curiosity replaced impatience. Who was this homeless girl? Why was she teaching with such confidence? Where did she learn to speak with such clarity, such kindness? As the billionaire watched, he realized this wasn't just a simple lesson. It was patience. It was care. It was something money couldn't buy. People passed by without stopping. Security guards ignored them. The world kept moving. But the billionaire stood still, feeling something shift inside him. For the first time in years, he questioned what success really meant, and what his daughter was truly learning in expensive classrooms. Just as he decided to step closer, he overheard a few words from the homeless girl that made his expression change completely. What she said next would force him to make a decision that would shock everyone and change all their lives forever. The billionaire slowed his steps, staying just far enough away to listen. The homeless girl's voice was soft, but her words were careful and precise. She wasn't just explaining answers, she was asking questions, guiding his daughter to think for herself. It sounded like something a trained teacher would do, not someone sleeping on the streets. His daughter laughed when she finally solved the problem, her face lighting up with pride. The billionaire felt a strange tightness in his chest. He had paid for the best schools, the best tutors, the best opportunities. Yet here, on concrete steps, his daughter seemed more alive than he had seen her in months. He glanced at the girl again. Her hands were rough, her backpack old and torn, but the way she spoke showed discipline and intelligence. She mentioned books she had read, lessons she remembered, dreams she still carried quietly. It made no sense. People like her were usually invisible, dismissed, forgotten. Yet she carried herself with dignity, as if she refused to let her situation define her. A security guard finally noticed them and began walking closer, his face already set with suspicion. The billionaire didn't move. He wanted to see how this would unfold. Would the girl be chased away? Would his daughter be pulled back into the safety of privilege? The homeless girl seemed to sense the tension. Her words slowed. She gently closed the notebook and told the child that learning didn't stop at school gates. Knowledge is something no one can take from you, she said quietly. Those words hit the billionaire harder than any boardroom challenge. He realized this moment wasn't accidental. It was a crossroads between comfort and truth, between ignoring the world and finally seeing it. As the guard stepped closer and his daughter looked up, waiting for him to act, the billionaire knew whatever he did next would reveal who he truly was, not as a businessman, but as a father and a human being. The security guard stopped a few steps away, his presence heavy and uncomfortable. He looked at the homeless girl first, then at the billionaire's daughter, clearly unsure how to handle what he was seeing. People nearby slowed down, sensing something unusual. A few parents whispered, some stared, others avoided eye contact, pretending nothing was happening. The girl kept her posture calm, but her eyes flicked briefly toward the guard. She had been here before, being asked to move, being judged without a word spoken. Still, she didn't stand up or apologize. Instead, she looked at the child and asked one final question, letting her think through the answer on her own. It was a small act of quiet defiance. The billionaire watched from the side, torn between stepping in and staying silent. Part of him feared attention, headlines, misunderstandings. Another part feared what silence would teach his daughter. He remembered his own childhood, growing up with little, learning from strangers who expected nothing in return. Somewhere along the way he had forgotten that version of himself. His daughter sensed the tension too. She clutched her notebook closer and looked back at the homeless girl, not with pity, but respect. "Can she stay?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the noise like a challenge. The question hung in the air. The guard shifted his weight, waiting for instruction. The billionaire felt every eye drift toward him, judging his wealth before his words. Meanwhile, the homeless girl lowered her gaze, bracing herself for another quiet rejection. Across the street, a black car waited with the engine running. Inside was the life he knew: comfort, control, distance. On the steps was a life he didn't understand but couldn't ignore. As the moment stretched, the billionaire realized this wasn't about rules or money anymore. It was about whose voice would matter, and whether compassion had a place in a world built on power and appearances. The guard's eyes darted between the billionaire and the girl, clearly waiting for a signal, his hand brushing near his radio as if ready to call for backup. The billionaire's daughter shifted her weight nervously, sensing the tension, but she didn't move away. Instead, she whispered something to the homeless girl, who smiled faintly and nodded, as if they shared a secret only they understood. The billionaire's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to step forward, to protect his daughter, to protect the girl who had captured his attention so completely. Yet stepping forward could cause a scene, could draw questions, cameras, misunderstandings. He glanced at the notebook in his daughter's hands, scribbled numbers, ideas, even little drawings the homeless girl had encouraged her to make. It was more than learning. It was trust, patience, and care. All given freely in a world that had taught both girls to be cautious. A few pedestrians had stopped. Sensing something unusual, whispers floated through the air. One woman muttered under her breath, "Why is a child sitting with someone like that?" Another shook her head, clearly disapproving. The pressure of judgment weighed on him, heavier than any business negotiation he had faced. The homeless girl straightened, her eyes meeting his for the first time. There was no fear, only quiet courage. She spoke again, her words measured and calm, but filled with weight. "Some things are more important than rules, sir. Some lessons can't wait." The billionaire felt a jolt of recognition, a truth he had tried to ignore for years. The guard's hand twitched toward his radio. The engine of the black car rumbled behind him, waiting, and in that frozen moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Every choice, every word, every action from this point forward would change everything. Just as the billionaire took a cautious step forward, a sudden shout cut through the tense air. A man in a sharply tailored suit appeared, pointing directly at the homeless girl. "That's her. She shouldn't be here." His voice carried authority, and everyone turned to look. The billionaire recognized him immediately, the head of a prestigious foundation that sponsored the elite schools. An organization known for strict rules and little tolerance for outsiders. The homeless girl froze for a brief moment, but then lifted her chin. "I'm just helping a child learn," she said quietly. But her voice carried the same calm confidence that had held the billionaire's attention from the start. The guard tensed, unsure whether to intervene, while the billionaire's daughter looked up at her father, wide-eyed clutching the notebook as if it were a shield. The man in the suit stepped closer, his face rigid with disapproval. "She has no clearance, no records, no background. You can't just allow her to teach here. This isn't safe." The billionaire felt the weight of the moment pressing down. The streets had never seemed smaller, yet somehow the stakes had grown impossibly higher. He realized the situation was no longer about a simple lesson or protecting his daughter. It was about justice, privilege, and who deserved to be seen. And then, just as he opened his mouth to respond, the homeless girl spoke again, revealing a truth that no one expected. "I was once part of your foundation. You just don't remember me." Gasps spread through the crowd. The man in the suit froze. The guard stepped back. Even the billionaire's daughter blinked in shock. Suddenly, the quiet lesson on the steps had become a confrontation with secrets, power, and past mistakes, and the world around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The air felt electric, every eye fixed on the girl who had once been invisible. The billionaire's heart pounded as the crowd waited, tension thick enough to choke on. He stepped forward finally, placing himself between his daughter and the man in the suit. "She is helping my daughter learn," he said firmly, his voice calm but unwavering, "and I will not turn her away." The man in the suit flinched, caught off guard by the billionaire's authority. "But she shouldn't." I said no. The billionaire interrupted, his gaze locked on the girl. "Everyone deserves a chance to be seen. Everyone deserves to teach, to learn, and to matter." The homeless girl's eyes glistened with something close to disbelief. She had expected dismissal, rejection, the usual invisible walls. Instead,